Hi everyone, welcome to another one of my draft videos. We are going to be going through the Rams' needs week by week, looking at each position group in this draft and considering who might be on the Rams' radar going into the NFL draft in April. Last week we looked at the cornerbacks group. This week we're going to be looking at edge rushers. Edge rusher position for the Rams is not very settled at the moment. There is obviously Byron Young has really solidified his place as a starter, but beyond that there are jobs to be won essentially. The depth is a bit of a mess. No one really knows which of those players on the roster at the moment are really going to contribute, and Michael Hoyt has had his troubles. He's more of a backup level edge rusher, and I think a lot of fans would be happy to see him in that role, but when he's starting the game and playing 90% of the snaps, it really does show up, and they just need someone added to that room or good depth and rotation options, so that they can keep on creating opportunities for their premium players like Aaron Donald and Byron Young and Kobe Turner, hopefully, going into the future. I don't think the Rams can escape from the fact that they're now in a division with two head coaches, Kyle Shanahan and Mike McDonald, who will come into each game and try and game plan around your team's roster, trying to take advantage of specific weaknesses with specific players. So I think when it comes to the trenches, the Rams are really going to be looking for players who are versatile, can stay on the field, can do a little bit of everything, and don't have any glaring issues or weaknesses that those coaches can exploit. I also don't think it's any coincidence that since Mike LaFleur became offensive coordinator, the Rams have got bigger, stronger, nastier on the O-line, in the form of guards like Kevin Dotson and Steve Avila. The 49ers for years just beat the Rams by bullying them off the ball, being more physical, wanting it more, having more determination than them. And so I think the Rams will start to look at players across the roster who can bring that level of physicality and start to compete with the high-end talent that the 49ers have assembled, particularly on the D-line and the O-line, and just start to kind of try and match them in terms of physicality. So those are the qualities that I'm going to be looking for in some of these players. Because of that, there are some edge rushers who are quite high on other people's big boards who just aren't on my draft board at all, either because there's some glaring issue that I don't want Kyle Shanahan to exploit, or it is just a player who just hasn't stood out consistently enough, hasn't shown enough hustle, hasn't shown enough physicality, and will just be one of those players who looks good when everything's going well, but won't necessarily just be able to drag you over the line in those dirty, difficult games that the Rams are going to have to play and win in order to finish at the top of the NFC West. So those are kind of the factors that are influencing some of my choices here. But I think you'll like the players that I've chosen because they show a lot of those qualities that the Rams are going to want to rely on in those big games. Just to kick us off, I thought I'd pull up the top-ranked edge rushers according to PFF grades. These guys are all draft picks this year, and it's just players who played in Power 5 conferences. And by far, top of the list is Laiatu Latu out of UCLA. Certainly going to be a popular pick amongst Rams fans. I'm sure many of them will be aware of him as a UCLA edge rusher, and he was very explosive, looked very good at the Senior Bowl, and I think is going to be picked at the top end of the first round somewhere. I've highlighted the players that are projected to be first round draft picks. You got Latu, Chop Robinson out of Penn State, which we'll get into his tape very soon. Braylon Trice from Washington, Jared Verse from FSU, and Darius Robinson from Missouri. And I've grouped these players along with Dallas Turner from Alabama, who was a 80 plus PFF grade but didn't make that list, into kind of a tier list where you've got these top three prospects, Verse, Turner and Latu, who I don't necessarily expect to be there when the Rams pick. So I'm not going to cover them too much, but out of the three, Verse is my favourite. I think he brings a power element that the Rams really need to complement who they've got already in the building. Out of the three, he's probably the only one I'd even consider trading up for. Dallas Turner, I like. I think he's too similar to Byron Young personally in what he can offer. I want someone who can switch it up a bit. I don't want defensive coordinators to be going into the week expecting to play the Rams and be able to game plan the same way for both guys. I want them to be worrying about, well, that guy's bringing this, but that guy's got a completely different flavour that we need to counter to, and your tackles don't know who they're going to be up against, snap in, snap out. So that's kind of what I'm looking for, a bit of variety from Byron Young, not someone who's going to be kind of a carbon copy. Not saying that Dallas Turner completely is, but I want someone who's a bit more different. Latu's good. He's had some injury concerns. He looked really good at the Senior Bowl. I would not be angry if the Rams drafted him, but I just think Verse adds a bit more of that flavour that they don't have on the roster at the moment. Now, these next two tiers are where it gets interesting, because I expect all those three players in tier 2 to be there on the board when the Rams pick at 19. So if the Rams look at one of these three guys and falls in love with them, they could very much be that pick at 19 in the first round. And I wouldn't be too mad about it. It might be a little bit rich for them, but they're not going to be on the board when they pick in the second round. So if you want them, you got to pick them there. Maybe there's a trade partner and they can pick up some extra picks. But I think if you're looking at a premium position like edge rusher, you're happy taking one of these guys at 19 if you love them. The tier 3 players are a bit more limited. Have some concerns about some of them. Maybe they fall off my board because of that. But they're very talented edge rushers. They can be starters in the league. They're just not necessarily going to become that top end player because they don't have the full package in one way or another. So unless by some stroke of luck, those top 3 tier 1 players are on the board when the Rams pick, I think the most interesting prospect for them will be Chop Robinson from Penn State. If you didn't watch any Penn State film from 2023, I recommend it. They had a really, really good pass rush, most sacks in college football last year. They had a group of 4 pass rushers, including Chop Robinson, Adisa Isaac, who was in tier 3 and draft eligible this year, and 2 others, Abdul Carter and Danny Dennis Sutton. I actually like all of them. They're all really fun to watch for different reasons. But Chop Robinson is top of the list here because he's just got that extra level of explosiveness. And I think if he could put it together, he could be a all-pro, Pro Bowl level player, which I don't think is necessarily true of the 2 other guys on that tier 2 list. Braylon Trice offers some similar things to Chop Robinson, but he hasn't quite got the same ceiling. If you just want consistency, just want a safe pair of hands who will just slot in and be a perfect complement to Byron Young, choose Braylon Trice and you'll be very happy. Really productive for Washington this year. Really good pass rush win rate and just sack production and things like that. He'd be a great pick, but Chop Robinson just gives you that extra potential of what he could be. And you'll see on the tape, his first step is explosive. He is so fast off the ball. As soon as that ball snaps, he is in the offensive lineman's face, and it's really fun to watch. He had a 21% pass rush win rate last year, which is anything above 20 is pretty damn good. And before the year started, he was on Bruce Feldman's freaks list. They're expecting him to test very, very well at the combine. We're still awaiting that at the time of filming, and he could really improve his draft stock with some of those combine drills and his 40 time. So let's get into some of this Chop Robinson film. I've got a series of plays here, actually, from the Iowa game that I think is a good mix of Chop. So this first one is 2nd down and 10 play. He arrives, creates some pressure, gets the QB hit, wayward pass from the QB that doesn't turn into a completion, and then moves straight on to the 3rd and 10 play straight after. Robinson's rushing from the interior there. You can tell which one he is because he's a yard and a half up the field before anyone else moves. Straight to the center. I don't know whether it's his immediate pressure here that causes the panic from the QB or just the fact that he's just sacked him a play before. But they muff the snap, and Chop and his mates are there to clean up. Iowa punted straight after that, and then straight on to the next series as soon as their offense comes back. Chop Robinson at the bottom of the screen, round the left tackle, swipes the ball out of the QB's hands, and it's Adisa Isaac who jumps on the ball and gets a turnover for them straight away. So obviously another turnover. Iowa offense goes off the field with their heads hanging low once more. Next series, the gang's back at it. You got Robinson at the top of the screen, drives the tight end back. The running back has nowhere else to go apart from the waiting arms of Robinson and the rest of the Penn State defense. So you get it all there. You get the quick, explosive first step. You get his ability to bend around the edge, swipe the ball out of the quarterback's hands, create a turnover. Just the chaos he causes in the run game, and just that pocket is non-existent. He's just causing so much disruption. And the thing I've said about Chop Robinson in my notes is he's an elite disruptor and a mediocre finisher. He performs best on a line like this where everyone is contributing, everyone's making plays, and when you map him onto that Rams defense, I can't help but get excited. Someone who creates instant disruption, collapses the pocket, and then creates opportunities for someone like Aaron Donald or Byron Young with the speed he's got, or Kobe Turner. I just think that's the perfect combination. And he's not a perfect player. That's the issue with Chop Robinson. That's why he's not in that top tier. He is imperfect. And I'll get into why in a second, but just having that elite explosiveness, I think, will create so many opportunities for the rest of the defense. Okay, I've got another Chop Robinson run stop. This one's against West Virginia earlier in the year. And Chop starts over the left tackle at the bottom of the line. And you just see his immediate explosion on the snap. Just throws himself into the guard. And it just creates chaos and confusion. Adisa Isaac gets him with the tackle for loss, number 20. But that is all Robinson just completely destroying the integrity of the play that the West Virginia offense were trying to run. Got another run stop here. Chops at the bottom over the right tackle here. Just instant impact, straight to the ball carrier. He's just so fun to watch. Love a bit of Chop. Interestingly, he wasn't a player that I fell in love with straight away. He is quite frustrating in that he's got this crazy first step, can really create some hustle plays, cause so much damage. But 70% of the time he's doing that, 30% of the time he looks a bit disinterested, doesn't play from whistle to whistle, isn't giving 100% effort all the time. And it's such a shame because I think he's got the potential to be a great edge rusher. But for whatever reason, he's just not showing the same level of, it's just the same work ethic as some of these other edge rushers. And that annoys me when you're putting on tape for NFL teams and trying to prove yourself. You know that you're declaring for the draft this year. you just got to go for it every single play. And we'll see some other players that I've highlighted who do that snap in, snap out. And so he is a frustrating player. It's not necessarily a problem that isn't fixable, but it's just that mentality, that sort of character that you want people to have intrinsically when you're drafting them in the first round. And he just doesn't quite show that on tape. I think he's got so much potential. I think he'd be such an exciting player. And the more I think about him on the Rams, the more excited I get about the idea of taking Chop Robinson at 19. I just think he's the perfect complement to what they already have on the team. And in these games where Aaron Donald's getting triple teamed and the other guys aren't getting through, you throw someone like Chop Robinson into the mix and he is creating so many more opportunities for the whole line, not just him. He hasn't had the sort of level of production in terms of stats, sacks, pass rush wins that you would like from someone who looks so impressive and explosive. But again, as I said, he's on a line where there's 4 really good pass rushers. They're all getting opportunities. He's probably played about 50% of the snaps of some of these other headline edge rushers. So those stats aren't going to be there when you're only playing half the snaps. That is just a matter of fact. So I think he's got the potential to be a very, very good NFL edge rusher, and I would not complain if the Rams took him in the first round. Okay, let's say the Rams go in a different direction in the first round, or they bring in a veteran edge rusher in free agency. Then they start looking at these tier 3 guys that I've identified and maybe picking them in the second round or in the third round. They've got 3 picks across those 2 rounds. I could definitely see them adding someone to the room, adding some depth, having some rotational pieces, guys that they can bring along, particularly if they get someone in free agency who's only there on a 2-year deal, for example. And one of my favorites out of that next group is Jonah Elliss from Utah. He is someone who has an NFL bloodline. His dad was a defensive tackle for the Detroit Lions. He's got 4 brothers. He's the youngest of 4, and all 3 of his brothers are on NFL rosters at the moment. So you've got Caden Ellis on the Falcons, previously the Saints, Christian Ellis on the Patriots, and Noah Ellis on the Eagles. And Jonah, as I said, is the youngest of the 3. He only turns 21 in April, so he's got a lot of time to keep on developing and have that extra upside that maybe they look for if he's going to be someone who sits behind Byron Young and a veteran. His biggest flaw is probably his size. He's only 6'2", 243 pounds. Jonah Elliss really makes his money as a pass rusher. He had a 90.4 pass rush grade according to PFF in 2023, 13 sacks in 10 games. And let's just see how he does it. He's really a technician. Just looking at this spin move, he forces the left tackle upfield to start with to get that width, and then exploits that by using the space he's created between the left tackle and the guard to spin through it and get the sack against Oregon State. Moving on to his tape against USC, he had a really good game. He was really fun to watch in this one, teeing off against Caleb Williams, of course. And on this play, he starts lined up just to the bottom of the screen, number 83, and he's lined up over the right tackle and the tight end at the end of the formation. And you see him throw aside the tight end, get around the right tackle, have to double back to try and chase down Caleb Williams as he breaks out of the pocket. And he has the speed and the athleticism to catch up with him and drag him down, force him to throw an incomplete pass. There's a good series here from the same game. So this is 3rd and 2 initially. And Ellis starts again at the top of the screen this time, over the right tackle. And he does perform a kind of spin move, but obviously it's 3rd and 2. It's not quite the same as the one we saw earlier. He knows the urgency of getting to the quarterback quickly. And so he just does enough to force the right tackle up the field, just to create a bit of space, a bit of leverage, and then gets off the block very quickly and wraps up Williams for only a yard, forces USC to punt. So really good play from him then to end the drive. And then next series, he starts off over the left tackle this time at the top of the screen and gets past the left tackle very easily. He's running full speed towards Williams and realizes what's happening here. Screenplay, I think it's Lloyd, the running back, and just gets his arm in the air, makes the throw a difficult one, gets really up in Williams' face, and Williams, being Williams, still makes the pass to the running back. But really good pressure from Jonah Elliss. Almost gets back-to-back plays on back-to-back drives. Really like Jonah Elliss. You can see there just how he wins in so many different ways. I think he's got a lot of upside given his age. He's someone that you can put on the roster, get up to NFL speed. You'll probably want him to put some extra weight on as well, get him up to kind of the 250 mark, and you'll have a really good pass rusher on your hands, I think. So Jonah Elliss out of Utah. Obviously, beyond those top three tiers, you start to look at players who are a bit more of a projection. And the Rams have had quite a lot of success doing that in years past with people like Obo Okoronkwo. They've got a few guys on the roster now, like Ojon Mattis and Nick Campton, that they're probably going to want to keep investing in. But I don't think they're going to shy away from adding extra players into that mix if they've got qualities that they like. I'm going to highlight two in this draft who I really like and think have that upside and could potentially become at least rotational pieces in that pass rush, potentially even future starters. The first one of those is Brennan Jackson from Washington State. He's currently projected to be about a round 5 pick. A lot of consensus big boards have him around the 170th mark in terms of player rankings. And he's someone who has very, very good high motor. He's definitely an effort player who will just keep on hustling, play after play after play. He was someone who wasn't on my radar initially, but when I watched the Oregon State tape, I started to ask, who is number 80? He's just constantly around the ball and really fun to watch. Physically, he's got quite a similar profile to Latu, kind of the 265-pound mark, quite a good size for a pass rusher, and he's got good athleticism at that weight as well. I was reading a draft profile for him earlier from Keith Sanchez of the Draft Network, and he said that he is a player who just disrupts the structure of the play, snap in, snap out, and he's similar to Chop Robinson in that regard, that he just creates chaos, and that energy and motor that he has just means that he's out-competing people. Even if he's got this kind of raw athleticism that needs a bit of refinement, he is still just causing a bit of chaos and breaking down the pocket, making it hard for the offense to operate. And so I think he can have an instant impact being that kind of player, and then once NFL coaches can work with him and help him to refine that and be a bit more clever, be a bit more intelligent in how he uses his energy, I think he could be even better. If anything, he can be a bit too direct and is just going full throttle all the time. Needs to be a bit more strategic in how he creates those leverage points. But with that determination, that commitment he shows, I have no doubt that he would be a student of the game and really would try and soak up any teaching he could get, both from veteran players around him and from coaches in the league. So he's someone I would really want to see on the Rams. I think he could be really fun and potentially a steal on day 3 of the draft. As I mentioned, his tape against Oregon State is fun, and he had a good back and forth with Fuaga. You could see there was a bit of a talent difference there. Fuaga dealt with him very cleverly on a lot of occasions. This is a run stop he makes, beats Fuaga's number 75 at the top of the screen, and then manages to get to the other side of the field to make the stop on the running back. This next run play is 3rd and 2, he actually starts off at the bottom of the screen this time over the left tackle. And he doesn't make the play on this one. It just shows what sort of disruption he can create. So he starts off at the bottom, pushes the left tackle into the running back who's trying to get out front and block for the quarterback on this designed run. Forces the quarterback inside, and unfortunately none of his teammates make the play on the interior, but is that disrupting the integrity of the play? That play design just got ruined by him pushing one blocker into another. And imagine that if you got Aaron Donald waiting in the middle. That's the sort of disruption I think the Rams really need to add to their line and could create a lot more opportunities for the guys that they already have. So I'd really like Brennan Jackson for the same reasons as I like Chop Robinson. I think Braden Trice is someone who's also could have that level of disruption and have to bring sort of a power rush that they're missing. The fourth and final guy I want to look at is in a bit of a different mould to the likes of Brennan Jackson and Chop Robinson. He is Austin Booker from Kansas, and he's a player who currently his projections are a bit all over the place. And I think part of that is at the moment he's 240 pounds, which is light for a player of his size. He's 6'4", so he's got a very slight and thin frame when you compare him to some of these other pass rushers. That's not to say he's not talented. He has a good range of pass rush moves, wins in a lot of different ways, and I've really liked watching his film. He is clever in how he beats the man in front of him. He knows how to create leverage with bigger, stronger tackles with longer arms, whatever it is. It reminds me a little bit of Brian Burns' profile when he was coming out of college. Burns came into the league and added about 10 pounds to his frame, and is obviously a very good NFL pass rusher now. He was a bit more explosive coming out of college than Booker is. I'm not saying they're going to be the same player, but it reminds me of that kind of player, and I think Booker could stand to do the same, getting an NFL team around their strength and conditioning coaches and just add a bit more weight and power. Despite those concerns about his size, he has a big wingspan and really knows how to use it to good effect. I really liked his tape against Texas, who are a team who've got a very good offensive line, 2 good tackles. Kelvin Banks is the left tackle there. And I think when he eventually comes out in the draft, he's going to be a high draft pick. Here we see Booker lined up over the left tackle, Kelvin Banks. Booker's number 9 at the bottom of the screen. And we just see him throw Banks aside with almost a swim move. And he's just there to make a tackle unchallenged on the ball carrier. Obviously, a left tackle who it must be 60, 70 pounds heavier than him, and he just manages to use that leverage to throw him out of the way. Another pressure here. Again, going against Banks. This time he uses power, uses those long arms to get in the left tackle's chest, drive him back towards the quarterback, and flushes him out of the pocket. I think those 2 clips show how Booker wins in different ways. Despite being a lighter edge rusher, he can still win with power, just using his physical advantages properly against really quite a high caliber left tackle. And I think NFL scouts are going to see that and want to work with that guy, want to get him in their building. Maybe he adds on more weight in the league. Maybe he doesn't. He's just still using his body effectively. He clearly understands what physical advantages he has, even if he's working with a different body to some of these other prospects. And I think NFL scouts are going to really like that and want to take advantage of that. So Austin Booker, who knows where he gets picked in this draft? He's put up some really good tape in 2023, and someone might be tempted to choose him early and see him as this sort of high upside prospect. But if he's there for the Rams in round 4, round 5, I think he'd be a really good addition to that pass rush room. They've been trying a lot lots of different depth players and haven't really got anywhere with it. So it'd be nice to get some fresh blood and see what some of these young guys can do. Thank you for watching this positional video for the 2024 NFL Draft. If you like the content, please do like and subscribe. We will be back every single week with a different position group all the way up until the NFL Draft. And please, keep in touch for any Rams draft content. You can find me on Twitter at JTPearsonNFL. Thanks a lot, guys. See you soon.